And in philosophy, especially in like Zen studies, there's things called koans, K-O-A-N. And a koan is a question that's being asked not so much to find the answer, but rather to go through the process of contemplating the question. Is that a question?
No.
Okay. And so the idea is when you ask a koan and you think about it, the actual process of going through it, that's the real value, and that can lead you to sort of new ways about thinking about things, new insights, and so on. And so one koan that you hear sometimes is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And a lot of these things, they sound kind of silly when you ask them. Okay, they're supposed to sound kind of jarring. They're supposed to make you take a step back. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Well, it's ridiculous because you can't clap with one hand, right? But as I said in my abstract, the way I sort of think about this is, well, if you take your one hand and you hit it against something and you say, what kind of sound does it make? It depends what you hit it against, right? If you hit it against a table, it makes that sound. If you hit it against air, it makes a different sound. And if you hit it against your hand, you get a clapping sound. So you can look at your hand and you can say, well, it has a certain shape and size and mass and composition and so on. Tell me what the sound is it makes when it hits something. And you can't answer that question. And what you're seeing is sort of a dualistic view of things. You like to think that you have your hand and it makes a certain sound when it hits some object. And you think that sound is a property of your hand, but it's not. It also depends on the object that's being hit. And so there's a connection between subject and object. Okay, and this is just sort of a first way to think about that, the fact that we think of these things as independent, but at some level they're not totally independent. First blush, that kind of sounds like a silly question. Of course it does, right? Just because I'm not there, the disturbance of the air doesn't change. So I want to offer a slightly different version of this. If there's no one around to eat a pepper, does it still taste spicy? Okay, and again, that sounds kind of silly. I mean, a pepper's sitting there in the store. It doesn't suddenly become spicy just because I walk down the aisle and look at it and it turns on its spiciness, you know. It's spicy whether I eat it or not, right? Okay, why are peppers spicy? They contain a compound called capsaicin. And capsaicin, when it goes in your mouth, it interacts with certain receptors in your mouth, sets off a culmination of a cascade of chemical reactions that culminate in the generation of a pain signal in your brain, specifically a signal associated with burning. And so when you put one of these in your mouth, it feels like your mouth is burning. And the concentration of capsaicin is related to how spicy the pepper tastes. So some peppers are very mild. These are sort of medium strength. Habaneros are very spicy, very high level concentration of this chemical. Now if you take this chemical and you distill it, concentrate it, put it in an aerosol, you can make pepper spray. And pepper spray is basically unbearably spicy. If someone's exposed to it, it's incredibly painful. It will completely incapacitate them. It's been reported that pepper spray is actually powerful enough that it'll repel even an attacking grizzly bear. But not a bird. Because birds don't have the same receptors in their mouths that mammals have. And as far as we know, there's no particular physiological effect on a bird from eating a hot pepper. It will happily munch down a habanero, and it doesn't seem to be spicy to it. So in a very real sense, this question, if there's no one around to eat a pepper, does it still taste spicy? It's a really good question, and in fact, there's no way that you can say it does taste spicy. If there was nothing in the world except peppers and birds, there'd be no such thing as spicy peppers. So it's very definitely a case where subject and object are very closely related, and you think there's some property that's intrinsic to this pepper, but it's not. Now the concentration of this chemical, that's intrinsic to the pepper. The spiciness, that depends on the observer.